SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity. What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. My name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps, and I'm joined in Grandma's couch studio.
He did not seem sure this morning, but with Scott, the mad scientist, sitting on the Cherokee couch all by his lonesome.
The maddest mad scientist.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wait till the weekend updates to find out why I'm.
Oh,
mad.
he was doing some things. He was keeping me posted throughout the process.
Oh, we've started this journey together. We will end this. Journey
I love
together.
it. I love it.
Boy.
I love it.
Oh,
And
boy.
we did, and that is a great. And I don't know. It's not a segue. It's not an analogy. It's foreshadowing. It's a great
Yes.
foreshadowing.
Yes.
Oh, well, if we're going to foreshadow, then the weekend updates, I want to talk about gas, but not what goes in your vehicle.
I want to talk about that too right now. And I don't even give a crap about the miles per gallon thing. Which I
that's-
usually.
That's
Yeah, it's beyond that now.
Yeah.
well, and that's the producer Jeff over there.
Yep. Looking, he's rocking the shades today. I'm feeling pretty good. My eye sensitivity is not over the moon at the moment. I'm not sure why today is better than other days, but
I don't know. I felt it was exceptionally bright in here this morning, so I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to try out
Well,
the
some
shades.
days
You've
I
been doing
do.
the shades for so long. I was like,
Well,
I'm going to try it out.
ever since the eye surgery,
yeah.
my light sensitivity is far greater than it used to be. So,
Sounds like we need a sunglasses sponsor.
ooh,
That would be fun.
yeah. Except for you know what?
You love rocking the Taco Bell ones.
You know what? I just I'm not that person. So I actually have thought about making this post on social media platforms a couple different times, and I've been off for a few weeks now. But I'm jealous. I'm authentically jealous of individuals, and specifically, guys who can wear like Oakleys or like high quality expensive sunglasses that are
cannot.
probably really good. I can't.
I will break them. I will lose them. It doesn't matter. I cannot wear the expensive ones.
I live too. I don't know.
You enjoy life too much.
That's what I'd like to say, right?
that's
I think those guys would say that, but I cannot. I lose them. I would break them. I get, jammed up side of the face. I pull them off. I throw them in the engine bay. I forget they're there. They melt down. They break.
Yeah.
My kids found a pair of my SFJ 4x4 sunglasses, like randomly smashed into like 1,000 pieces because I was riding a mini bike and I was Supermaning it, and they must have fallen off my head in the middle because it was at nighttime when I was doing this. Like those types of things. Like, does the guy who wears the $400 pair of Oakleys, does he do that? Is he randomly like, I think I'm going to drive the mini bike as fast as possibly can in the middle of the night, and just happen to have the sunglasses on his head and mine flew off? Like, does he do that?
Probably. They just have, more disposable income.
I guess, maybe.
In the comments, we got Bill McWilliams saying, good morning, guys. He was first. Billy Joe saying good morning. Bill's laughing at the goat because I may have accidentally triggered the goat during our intro. We got Daddy Jeep saying good morning. And then Nate saying that they're on the road from Trail Hero Expedition Season 2. Still about 1,300 miles to go.
Good for you. Good for you.
Jaga Jeeper said good morning. Bradford said it's a power through it Monday.
I believe that. I
Yeah,
feel
I
that
feel
in my
that.
soul.
Yeah. Jeannie said good morning, no rain. And she also said light sensitivity is why she's always wearing a hat.
Get it?
Daddy Jeep said I need my Blues Brothers suit. Yep.
That would be fun.
That would-
That would be a heck of a good Halloween.
That's what I did for Halloween the one year.
I know. I've seen
Yeah.
your picture.
Yeah, we pulled it off pretty good. And then Katie's biker glasses stay on your face and are inexpensive and come with bifocals now.
I don't need that just yet.
Well,
but
I might.
I love it. Good morning to everybody. Just a quick precursor, because I've seen a number of these individuals just recently, and I want to on air, respond back. First of all, Bradford, from the mood that I was in Saturday morning, things have not exactly improved. If that gives you any indication as to where I'm at. And two, Jeannie, thank you so much for the orange roll. See, there's a number of people on my personal socials who know that I went on a bit of a adventure looking for my favorite orange rolls. Which
I was cracking up at your posts about them being missing. Not even a spot for them at the Walmart.
Yeah. Now, and that was a whole other debacle and whatnot beyond that. But we have a good friend and customer of the business, Randall and Amanda. They actually bought me they found them at a grocer, and they brought them, from Cincinnati to
Heck
here.
yeah.
So thank you for that. But Jeannie actually went ahead and made some from scratch the other day. They were delicious. I put a hurt on them. So thank you for all of those. I have not adequately been available to the social media platforms because the spring has been so very challenging professionally. And so I did have a birthday, and a lot of people were very, very kind to me and very gracious. And, when I've seen them, they've been very responsive and brought gifts and stuff. I want to make sure I'm recognizing them, but I've not been in a great place to do so.
Speaking of which, we now have enough ice cream for 80 bad days.
So no joke. Yeah. Bradford brought us 3 gallons of ice cream.
Yes.
To which I'm not going to lie, I actually threw an ice cream party Saturday night. I was here. My family came over. I was working late. It made the extra work worth it, if you will.
Yes.
Right? So
Ice cream therapy is always
ice cream
always good.
therapy is where we're at as a business surviving 2026, folks.
Yes.
Scott's favorite is strawberry. Greg's is anything that chocolatey that will rot your teeth. And my gate swings every direction, so it's all good.
It's 2026. That's okay.
Anyways, folks, we are going to be talking about brakes for a JLJT specifically, right?
Because you probably bought the wrong ones.
Woo, goodness. And you know what? And more so importantly, it occurred to me most recently, we've had some ups and downs with brakes specifically, and seeing how driving style has always impacted them, and some things started to change around the JK, and then things got real wild for the JLJT.
I'd say at least with the JK, it was consistent. Like you could it was like old Cherokee days where you went in and somebody was like, I need something for my front axle. And you're like, well, you have a high pinion Dana 30 and you have an 8 1/4 in the back, and you have a 4-liter and a AW4.
100%.
And you were right 96.5% of the time. And JK, it didn't matter if you're Rubicon, Sahara, base model, Aquarium, you had the same brakes. And then I think that the OE saw us like putting big brake kits on and that kind of stuff. And they're like, we can do that too.
They did. And I think they wanted to exist in the minutia. They wanted to exist in that finite, and they made little detail changes for different packages. Mm-hmm. I actually think if I was to take a 20, 30 second PSA to talk about if you just have a daily driver Jeep, that, in my opinion, the Jeep JK is probably the best everyday multi-purpose Jeep around, and that would be from a DIY serviceability standpoint.
You're just biased.
I am biased. I get it, but as far as understanding some of the consistencies, now I can probably make a similar argument loosely enough about JT Gladiators, because you only got 2 engine platforms, and arguably you got a consistent axle package.
Yes.
Now the problem is you get narrows, you get wides, you get tow packages, you get max tow packages. Yeah. That's where we do start to get a little gobbledygook in the process.
They made up with it with the towing limits and that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Right. Whereas, I mean, largely with the JKs, you had a 30 front and a 44 rear, or you were at 44, and your brakes were largely the same, and drive shafts were largely the same, and you can if there was actually any of them in the boneyard, you could go and get a part easily, like we used to, right? Like Scott and I we were there when you would just go to the junkyard and get parts and put on your Jeep, and you would make it survive.
You found a 4-cylinder anything, and you were like, oh, it's got 410s.
I can make this work.
I can make this work.
And now it's like, oh, I just buy a part from Amazon and Detroit Axle the vehicle from Rock Auto, you know.
Ew.
Real quick, I'm going to jump back to the comments. Bradford had said, "This car's for you." Bill McWilliams said, "I hit a few yard sales over the weekend, scored a brand new truck tent and air mattress combo for Bantam this year. That's pretty cool."
Wow, nice.
Jaga Jeeper said, "Just in time, my Gladiator needs pads." And we're going to talk about why you need pads and rotors. Then you got Charles saying, "Good morning from Texas. I hope you're all having better morning than I. The dang YJ dumped on him this morning." Dispersed Dirt Off Road said, "Happy Monday." And Corporal Collins said, "I was able to change the clutch in the driveway on my JK. Pretty straightforward."
Excellent. Congratulations. And it seems like we're off to a great start, other than Charles and the YJ. There was one thing. Scroll up just a smidgy bit for me. Right. Oh, the car. It was, I actually had I'm going to take a moment and share this story just because it's a little serendipitous, especially where we're at eating our feelings and ice cream these days. Years ago, when we were absolutely a nobody nothing business, but had garnered the attention of some inside the industry folks, when it was actually before Scott was even here full time, but Scott has always been a major player since 06, 07. But it was before he was full time. It was when it was just Greg and I toiling away. And we were invited to an event called The Big Show, and it happened to be in Washington, D.C. at the time, and it's an aftermarket automotive specialist event, sort of like SEMA, but not anywhere close. And so we were at The Big Show, and we were pretty young in the industry in the grand scheme of things, and CARR, CARR, which is a USA aluminum product manufacturer known wildly for car steps, which is the traditional hoop step, and a number of our customers have it because they're kind of a classic or an iconic look to them.
Say they've been around since square body Chevys.
They have, and if you were into square body Ford, square body Chevy, OBS stuff, you're gonna recognize this product line. And CARR has had its heyday, and now they largely produce this very classic step, and that's their primary medium. But it fit right into what we were trying to do as far as USA manufactured and quality, kind of a quality approach. We're at this show, and I'm not a big freebie guy. Like, I don't need to take the convention bag and get all the stickers and the pens and the stuff like that. And no discredit to anybody else who does want to do that and thinks that's cool. I'm here for you to do that. But CARR booth, I happened to be walking by, and they had made ice cream scoops out of drops of excess aluminum material.
That's super fun.
And both Greg and I got these ice cream scoops from this show, and it was very early on, and it was the aftermarket industry, and it was a brand that I felt we could identify with in a capacity. And recently, again, we've been prioritizing our ice cream experiences, and Bradford was very generous with his gift to us. And so I made sure to bring in my CARR ice cream scoop.
As you should.
My aftermarket Jeep product ice cream scoop, because that's just how geeky I am, and make sure that was on site for our, for our eating of our feelings. So there's a little backstory on that. With all of that said, and Joe's talking about JK brakes are the same as the Dodge Caravan.
Yep.
Similar, absolutely. Has a lot of crossover, and actually and identical in certain situations. So one thing that we learned from the JK brakes was that all of a sudden JKs go through brakes in the rear axle twice as fast, and this is a generality, twice as fast as front brakes. Historically, when disc brakes became a thing, and certainly from having drum rear and disc front, we would go through the front brakes more often
Yes.
than rear. Drums were, depending on the size of the truck, if you had a 3/4 ton truck,
I would say any drums just seem to soldier on forever. I remember my S10 from high school days had 130,000 miles on it, and the rear shoes were still the Delco originals. So, and I had put like 4 sets of front brakes on it in my ownership at that point.
right?
So it's just a different design.
Well, and I think that part of that is where, and I always talk about the ripple effect of the automotive community. The average consumer is still mindset was in the drum rear to
Yes.
disc front. And in fact, in our XJs and our TJs, we were that through 2001, 2002.
Yep.
Right? So when other
And
manufacturers...
honestly, some after that, even you could get drums even in the 4 or 5s, depending on how it's optional.
Sure, an application, absolutely. But as a large, I remember this catalyst shift happening between 01 and let's call it 05.
And I think the funniest part is everybody kind of got excited about discs and swapping the discs and all that kind of stuff. It was like the wave of
It
the
was a
future.
trend.
But nobody really knew why we were doing it.
Well, we just knew that like other automotive manufacturers were disc a decade or two
Yes.
earlier than us.
Yeah.
Right. And so your cars were disc and at that time, I mean, we still had, in 2000, we still had brake lathes at your reputable aftermarket part suppliers. So you could walk into O'Reilly's, you walked into your Napa, your Automotive Parts Plus place,
Yep.
and they had a brake lathe, and they were going to turn your rotors for you.
Correct. And the rotors were a lot thicker, so they had more meat to them to be able to do that.
I'm going to put out a PSA. If anybody's got a brake lathe linking around that they just need to pass off to somebody.
You know what's really a shame is that I've passed on so many brake lathes to this point.
Don't say that.
I mean, I was offered for free. I was offered for like 20 or 25
Don't
bucks.
say that. It hurts me.
I've passed on so many brake lathes to this point because you also could turn drums. There was other brake lathes that could turn drums or multi-process lathes, right? So there was some that were just, just rotors. And some that were drum oriented. I actually used to turn them. I remember going to the junkyard with my dad and finding a good set of rotors and drums to then take to the parts store to have them turned. And then I bought my pads.
Yep.
And
there we are.
With my early Ford affliction, there's actually so hard to get drums turned now that there's actually used part suppliers turning drums and then selling them for increased profit.
Sure.
Because that way they're ready to go. You don't have to worry about it. They make sure they're good in spec. They turn them, they ship them to you.
That's how if you remember, that's how we started. I sold Spicer U-joints and people are like, well, that's cool, but I need the drive shaft. I had used drive shafts around. They were like, well, that's cool, but I don't actually know how to clean them up or install them and, make sure it's all functionally ready to go. And I just put it together and shipped it off. And that was a heck of a good gig for us for a while.
Yep.
And I get it. It makes perfect sense to me. You, especially in the world that we're living in, access to quality vintage parts in that regard would be very challenging to come by.
Absolutely.
So here we are into the JT era.
Yes.
And it's important to note a couple things. Jeffrey already kind of loosely let the cat out of the bag. The metal that we were using for rotors and drums at that time was factually, I stand on the word factual, better.
Yes.
It was better.
They just were.
It was a more pure metallurgy. There was less recycled material content in it. Our manufacturing processes were more longitudinally based. It was less race to the bottom or race speed to market. And so there was more meat on the rotors. There was more meat on the drums. They were overbuilt.
Just for a good example, my C10 I just sold, that had rotors from a 71 C10 that had rusted up to the door handles. Mm-hmm. I took those rotors off of that truck. I put them on my truck, and they were the original from 1971 rotors. And
awesome.
I cleaned them up. I put new pads on them, and I just sold it with those I put on in middle school.
Yes.
And it still has the 1971 rotors on it.
Yes.
And-
Obviously, we weren't driving it in a daily capacity,
No,
but we all drove it in some way, shape, or form. It was a
Correct.
beautiful, well-behaving truck.
Correct.
Yeah, but you take a rotor from today, fast forward 50 years, you're not using that rotor.
No.
There's nothing left.
No.
Now, it's important to note, I want to put the spoiler alert out there. I've spoken to a number of, Jeep enthusiasts, automotive enthusiasts. They're like, today's brakes are crap. They don't even last 16, 18, 24 months. Not true. But we'll get to that.
Well, if you're buying white box,
Okay, well, we'll get to it now.
Junk.
So
Apparently, we're getting to it.
apparently we're going to do it now.
Well,
so
no. Before we get to that, we have to talk about the fact that the braking manufacturing was changed how many times.
Well,
That is why the material is what it is.
the material has changed a bunch, both material of pads and rotors.
Correct.
I mean, it's all the variables have changed.
yes, and I think that, and if you go back far enough, there's a conversation about riveted and bonded.
Yep.
And so we don't even really deal with that anymore. We've talked about previously on this program, we've talked about federal regulations as far as
The copper amount and other metallurgy.
precious metal and metallurgies that are in the pads themselves. We've seen the rise in popularity, and I'd argue a little bit of the fall in ceramic.
Right.
There's a value to ceramic, but it's not what it once was marketed as.
And we did a whole episode, I think, just in the last year about all the different brake types.
Yeah.
Correct. And so we've kind of, covered a number of these grounds with how brakes have ebbed and flowed. And now with the advent and the release of the 2018 and a half JL, we get into this really uncomfortable world of heavily recycled materials. So the actual product, the rotors, the pads, the base components, the base metals that are used in here are heavily recycled prior to being used in the brake application, especially when it comes to the white box, no name, bottom barrel. And I say that, folks, and here's I need you to know.
Detroit
I
axle.
actually What's that?
Detroit axle.
Yeah, Detroit axle. Well, even if you go to the standard box stores and you buy their name brand, but you buy their bottom, entry level economy brake, it's basically what you're getting still. It's just their most affordable, just because their name's on it.
But with affordability comes a great amount of dust.
100%, because that metal is literally schlepping apart in the process.
And a great amount of rust.
That too.
So now the thing with the JLs and the JTs. Okay, so I've heard this conversation. I've been the fly on the wall with a lot of this conversation. There is a BRY brake code, and then there's a BR2 through BR6. That's BR2, BR3, BR4, BR5, and BR6.
Be our guest.
Nowhere on your Jeep does it say what your brake code is.
Nope.
Okay? I need you to know that this is line in the sand. You don't get to go in and you don't get to ask the internets and be like, this is what I have. I have a V6 and I'm a Sport S and with a hard top.
Maybe
What brakes do I need?
introduce Lannis to like 1980 GM, where they had the little option code sticker that was on the glove box.
Wouldn't that make so
That
much
would be
sense?
awesome.
Like, could we learn, like 40 years ago,
Right.
from GM and just implement that, please?
Right. Now, it's important to note whether you're BRY or BR guest, there's then only arguably two options factory. Okay? So BRY is one size option of rotor pad combination, and then BR Guest, which I'm just running with now. I freaking love it. BR 2 through 6 is another size option, and it would be arguably the smaller option. And it would be safe to say that BRY is going to be more on the heavy duty side of things, and BR Guest is going to be on the lighter duty side of things. Those are gross generalities. Think Rubicon versus non. But other than that, there is really not a great rhyme or reason because we've seen opposite codes showing up in other applications.
Yep.
They also factually have different calipers associated with the brake codes themselves.
Yep.
And the only way to definitively say what brake code you have in order to acquire the appropriate size pad rotor and by extension caliper combination is to run the VIN of your vehicle with the dealership.
Yep. Because they will have the brake code. And then you take that brake code to your box store or buy it from the dealer for twice as much.
100%. Now, that whole buy from the dealer for twice as much conversation, it was literally, I had to go back in, Jeffrey, and I had to look at our understanding of brakes.
Yeah.
Right? Because we had a customer come through, and part of me being inspired was she came through and her brakes were shot. And it's a JL, and I had said, like, you know, your brakes are bad, and here's, they look like reptile scales, and they look like reptile scales, and you can see pitting, and you can see a bad contact patch, and so on and so forth on her brakes. And I remember that we actually had given them a quote sometime within the last, nominal period of time. And I went back and I had to do some digging, and it looked like we gave them a quote back about 16 months ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was 16 months ago. It was a JL. And at that time, we were quoting dealership prices.
Right. Because that was all we could find at that time.
Because that's all we could find reliably at that time.
Correct.
So we're talking about a Jeep that was released in 2018 and a half, and it was just 16 months ago, which puts us at the very beginning of 25.
Yep.
Oh, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That's 7 years.
Yep.
7 years, and we were still buying dealership parts because arguably that's the only parts that we could find reliably. Now, I do know factually Napa had some options. I do know factually some other brake manufacturers had options.
They had options, but it was often not the code that you needed. And if you knew what your brake codes were, because there was, for a while, the Rubicon, the heavy-duty brakes, I should say, not the Rubicon necessarily, the heavy-duty brakes were not available in the aftermarket at all.
Yep. It was a curse almost.
Yeah.
And how wild, because we are 7 years in and we hadn't done that many brakes as an industry that the aftermarket was like, hey, we should make brakes easily accessible. Mm-hmm. So it's a testament to the precision, despite the fact that I was just trashing the metallurgy and that kind of stuff. That's not the case. With the OE manufactured brakes,
they're holding up.
they're exceptional.
I would say we're just now getting some 21s coming in that need half the Jeep done, and my knock on wood is a 21 and still haven't had to touch the brakes. Jeff had to because he just.
But I have 105,000 miles on the Jeep, and I've changed the rear because I felt like I should, not because I needed to.
Yeah.
They were okay, but I was like, they're getting there, so I changed them.
I have 160,000 on my wife's mall crawler.
And you haven't changed them?
I've done them once.
Once.
Once. Think about that. 160,000 miles.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. We never would have had that
Right.
3 decades ago, 4 decades ago. You know what I mean? Like, we would have been doing brakes multiple times at that rate. And hell, think that at 160, that Jeep needed to go off to the boneyard.
Yes.
Granted, you put an engine in it for us, and I appreciate that, but that was semi-unrelated.
Yeah.
Well, and now that we've already kind of talked a little bit about the different brake codes, Opie and Quigley saying, if you have to ask a dealer about a brake code with the VIN, then how do you manage that with an axle swap vehicle, example JLU Sport, with a 392 axle swap off Marketplace?
You have to use the VIN off of that previous vehicle.
Axle.
Now, with that said, the 392, it was going to have Rubicon axles.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. Know that the originals. I don't know that the 392 comes with anything that doesn't have the HD brake kit.
We can't say for certain on anything because Jeep always keeps us on our toes. And when we think we know it, they smack upside the head and teach us otherwise. Mm-hmm. But Rubicons should, air quotes, should be the easier to figure out.
Right.
Correct.
You should have the HD package, which those HD brakes were available right away. Because they actually crossed over to like an obscure 1500 or something.
Right. But not everybody realized that. So it took some.
Right. That
time
wasn't knowledge that was 100% pervasive. And quite frankly, I don't even exactly remember what that crossover is.
It was a RAM of some kind.
It was only a 5-year RAM option or something.
Which I think is funny because we know some of the big brake kits from the JK are basically just 1,500 brakes. So Jeep 100% was like, we're just
hey, this thing's close enough over here. We move this, we open this hole up a little bit, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Absolutely. And
Jugga Jeepers brought up brakes don't have the chirper on them anymore. That piece of metal that started chirping when your pads got low.
Some do, some don't.
right.
Yep.
Not all do anymore. Again, that was a thing that we saw pervasive and now we see less of in my opinion.
I would say if you, at least the high quality brakes we're installing do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you get the cheaper ones or some OEs, I would say are emitting them, probably just because they dealt with noise complaints. Mm-hmm. And it was easier just to not do that.
Right. Eliminate that little piece of the equation.
Yeah.
So the other piece would be once you VIN'd out that axle application, then you will know whether you have the BR guest code or the BRY code. Yep. Because at the end of the day, there are only categorically the HD brakes or the non, unless you have done some type of aftermarket big brake swap. And that obviously became very popular under the JK. Not exactly what I want to get into now, but maybe we'll dabble it here in a second.
I would say the Saharas or the Overland, well, JTs are not really a problem, but the Saharas are where the problem lies because we haven't seen a consistent optioning with those. Sometimes they have the little brakes, sometimes they have the bigger brakes, and there's really no rhyme nor reason. You know, it would be easier if it was like, oh, that Sahara has a towing package, so it has the bigger brakes. It doesn't seem to be the trend.
So the question would be, where would we feel like Willys packages come in too? Because I feel like that's the one that
I think
is
they're
also
in the Sahara.
It's very similar, where usually the heavier towing package is going to have the bigger brakes, but not always.
And that's the thing, is we're not seeing that ability to create consistent messaging with these vehicles when they come in.
And this is sad because, you know, how I am, but am I right in thinking that JTs pretty much always have the bigger brakes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so far, and our confusion with the JTs comes in with axle widths and tow capacities and all that kind of stuff. Not necessarily
I
the
think
brakes.
Jeff actually used Rubicon brakes on his.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're always the HD until you get into the big brake kits.
Yeah.
You know, which then get more confusing.
Yeah.
When it comes to the JL JT, you know, again, we talked about the kind of the proficiency of the OEs, and this go back to that story that I had started with the young lady. I had asked her, I said, you know, I knew that we had actually quoted her, but then I thought there's no way that she's now 16, 18 months later and still on those crummy brakes. And she said, no, they actually did them. Her and her father had actually, you know, did it as a DIY project for them. And I remember because they were actually one of the folks who turned us on to some of the brake availability in the aftermarket.
Right.
And so it made sense that they had gone out and they had procured these brakes. But here we are just 16 months later, and their brakes are toast.
To the point that you didn't think they had been changed at all.
Correct. I mean, they were absolutely ruined, And, so like the question then begs, how then does, and that's not a cheap date. See, even at the, the aftermarket going to the box store, they're not a cheap date. They're not
Right.
$20 a rotor anymore and $15 on pads.
Those
right?
were the days.
We're still talking hundreds of dollars on a pad rotor.
If you
comp.
spend $100 on your whole setup, you're like, oh, that was a bit of money. Now it's $100 for a rotor.
And so, so this conversation, what then creates the difference? Because I mean, her brakes were shedding poorly, right? I saw brake dust. Her wheel started to discolor, and we see, the signs of the fact that they spent money just a year and a half ago, and it's wasted. Now you have to do it all over again. Why is that? And I've heard it as a conversation from a number of people. Oh, brakes these days suck. Okay. True. They're not many moons ago. But if you were to tell me that we were going to be going 100,000 plus on OE brakes, that doesn't suck. That's
Right.
good quality brakes. So then something else sucks. The aftermarket brakes do, or as I have been sharing with people more and more in a professional capacity, as the quality control of our brakes have gone down, it now prioritizes our process more than ever.
Yes.
Yep.
I think that back in the day, doing brakes was a shade tree mechanic's job. It was one of those things that you could feel comfortable and confident and accomplished that you were doing mechanical things because, you got your trolley jack out and you got an appropriate lift point and you put your jack stand under and you sat on a Saturday afternoon and you did your brakes.
Right.
I suspect that the brake material and the rudimentary function of the braking system was so robust that you didn't have to do it well. Right? You didn't have to have every slide greased. You didn't have to have the pins perfectly clean.
Perfect example is how many Cherokees, TJs, even Grands, ZJ style, would come in and they would have spots where the pads had shucked so much that they had worn divots into the bracket.
Into the hard bracket.
And how often people didn't even do anything about that.
Right.
They just slapped new pads in there and kept on going. And only when it became like a mountainside would it finally restrict the pad movement. And I remember a bunch of people that would just grind it into a trough so it could go down and back up the other side, and it was okay. We would MIG weld them up and grind them down and kind of restore it back the way it was.
Yes.
But that was, you're out hammer, chisel, type of stuff. Where now, if your slides aren't clean and you aren't cleaning behind the slides and you're not appropriately greasing pins and you're not making sure that the one piston is actuating like the other one.
Well, then the seals are so good that if you overgrease the pins, it creates a problem as well.
You can make them hydraulic.
You can make them hydraulically lock. The other, I agree entirely, and that's exactly my sentiment. That back in the day, the material used for brakes was so forgiving that you didn't have to be that good at doing the installation.
Right.
And now the systems are so precise and the materials are not so great for the aftermarket purposes that you have to be really good at doing the installation. And not just the installation,
The bedding.
but the break-in and bedding.
Yep.
And that's another piece that people didn't do. We have supposed to have been breaking in brakes for decades. But nobody did. I would challenge people in the comment, do you know what bedding brakes is, and have you made a kind of a routine as as part of your brake services to bed your brakes.
I would say 10 years ago, the only people that knew about that at all were like autocrossers or time attack people, something like that, where they were actually going out and just flogging the crap out of their brakes on the weekends. Those people started to learn and go like, oh, I need to bed my brakes. And then the fancier materials, I remember the green stuff and the yellow stuff, they would talk about bedding brakes. But everybody, I think, got the thought that that was only for race car things.
Right.
The reality is, no, we all need to do it, even if it irritates your wife like does mine. But you need to introduce that pad to the rotor properly.
Correct.
For them to be friends.
Yes.
For a long period of time.
For a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because if they don't...
It's all about the first date.
It's the first date. It's the first impressions. If there's not good first impressions between the rotor and the pad, then you're not going to have...
cat fight.
You're not going to have long-term success. Which is, in part, one of the big reasons why you should not just slap pads on decent-looking rotors.
Yeah.
And so, ultimately, you need 2 clean mating surfaces. And then you have to go through the process of bedding the surfaces, which is matching them up to each other.
Just because I know there's going to be the guy for clean surfaces. Front pad, back pad, both sides of the rotor. Because someone's a
Fair.
Well, I did half of it right.
Yes. So you have to have multiple clean surfaces, fresh surfaces, and you have to match them to each other. Not dissimilar from ring and pinion faces, from bearing end caps or bearing caps in an engine. Similar concepts where things are intended to be mated and then retained in that fashion, right? And that way you're actually on a micro level, creating consistent striations between the two materials as they clean across each other. If you take a pad by today's standards and you apply it to a used rotor that already has a wear surface embedded into it that can be seen and not seen, then all you're going to do is actually chunk away at the pad. You're actually going to be schlepping off far more material in an inconsistent fashion that it was never engineered to do, and therefore you're going to deteriorate that pad surface and by extension the rotor, because now it becomes parasitic to each other.
Right.
Now you have an inconsistent pad that has big missing chunks and it's ripping away at the rotor.
Like 2 pieces of sandpaper just rubbing together.
And you're going to
100%.
have more noise, vibration, all that kind of stuff. One thing I can say I don't see as much as I did 15 years ago was brake pulse, warped rotors. That was a thing. Like, seemed like everybody had warped rotors and your pedals going up and down. That is less.
It is less. I agree with you. It is less. And here's where I overconfidently have a belief system in that. 15 years ago to 25 years ago, right in there, is when we opened up the markets to import saturation. And that is where we got overseas pads and rotors like crazy.
Yes.
And we subjected Asian market or South American market rotors to speeds and utilization of Western markets, which is not, those are not two things do not jive or did not jive.
That's fair.
The equipment being used in those developing countries at that time to make those products, not as good.
And the material they were made
And
out
the
of.
material at that time was even less than it is now.
Yeah.
As those countries have increased, and I, as a personal purveyor of the industry, I can talk at length about how this has affected ring and pinion production. I can talk about how it has affected brakes. I can tell you the types of equipment and machines and toolings, factory level, that actually cut these things, have migrated from stateside production to Asian and South American, spaces.
And didn't we even hear from in the know people that they had taken worn out machines from the garbage from the US.
Yes.
And taken over there, and they gave it a pep talk.
Yes.
And started producing parts.
wax on, wax off, and start making parts.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Just a little spit shine, and we're off to the races. And so those parts that were then in the markets were the white box brakes and rotors, and we were seeing mass warpage. We have seen it still today because, those parts are still sort of available. We've all watched the videos of the guys who are in bare feet forging things in the sand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just part of the internet at this point. That's where the machine goes after it's been cast aside from its previous life,
Yeah.
But I will say the warped rotors is not gone. It's just way less common. We have absolutely had to change warped rotors on JLJTs.
Absolutely.
Usually because of a caliper getting stuck and getting superheated.
Absolutely.
And now that's going to affect the whole braking
I
system.
would say that's extenuating circumstance, though, where before.
I want
it.
to agree with you.
Stop it.
But there was something about a serpent and
And it's standing in a different direction. I don't know.
Extenuating circumstances is correct. But there was something about wizardry and serpents in the process.
Magic.
This isn't the Harry Potter episode anymore, guys.
Oh, speaking of magic, do you remember Magic Brakes? Is that familiar to you at all?
No.
No, Magic
Educate
Brakes.
us.
So it was right at the turn of this whole process, and it was Magic was really, really popular. He was a stateside guy. He was an engineer, and he is, as I can, the best. And God, I hope that I'm not offending anybody in this process, but he's totally an engineer mentality, and he must have worked in the braking industry, and then he leaves at some point in time because he's like, I can do better, right?
Sure, not talking about basketball player.
I'm sure not Magic Johnson. And then he gets really, really jaded because he comes up with a composite that, and I've spoken to this man personally, that he swears big business stole from him. And it was super, super relevant in the TJ market. It was on the forums. It was back in the forum day, coming out of the late 90s, early 2000s. And Magic brakes were all the rage for TJ owners. You were somebody if you had Magic brakes. Just like Vanco was making some parts and pieces.
Yeah.
This singular entity had produced these brakes called Magic brakes. And man, I forgot all about that until you said something. But there was a pad composite, and you were supposed to use his pads on certain rotors. And then he had this whole process. It was the break-in process.
Yeah.
And I would argue that probably he was just finite aware of what was coming down the pipe because of his, personal and everyday
Speaking of which, is probably another reason why breaking in the brakes are so important is back in organic days when you just had organic pads or a metallic pad, it probably wasn't as critical to bed them then because metallics are just going to rip the rotor a new one and it's going to do what it needs to do. Organics just going to fluff off and give up. The rotor would win in that situation. Where now when we have our composites and our ceramics and we have more exotic,
They're literally
material,
fighting each other.
they're fighting each other. So you need to, that's when the first date shows up.
Sure. and I think that all of that is very relevant to the conversation to say we can track it to this point and say, hey, there's a reason why our ripple effect of information
Yes.
affects the fact that it is not a pleasant DIY experience anymore to do brakes on a Jeep Wrangler.
I remember my dad getting all fired up that I don't want those metallic pads. I want organics to save my rotors. That was always his battle.
Isn't that
cry.
interesting? I love Fredisms. God, it's not a Fredism that I would have been able to produce, but I
Yeah.
am so glad that
Well, rotors were expensive and pads were cheap.
That's why my
true.
dad and I were hunting the junkyard to find rotors because rotors are expensive because you were meant to make them last
reuse them.
and reuse them, you
Yeah.
know?
Now they're expensive because they just want to get your money. But
Well, let's talk about what is actually factually happening. Now, I personally am a believer that you have to buy the best possible option available. And then once you've purchased that best possible option available, then you do a rigorous and attentive installation process and then bedding or break-in of the brakes.
And I want to point out that's not because we want to sell you the most expensive brakes. That is literally because they will last 2-3 times longer than the cheap ones. You're going to get your money's worth out of them.
And my suspicion, I have no way of proving this other than my gut feel, is when you have some sort of product like used cast iron, you're going to melt it down. And now there's going to be a quality checkpoint. And the junk is going to go for the low quality stuff. And then we're going to get more refined as we go up the chain. So it's kind of makes in my head, makes perfect sense why if you go and buy a white box, cheap as crap rotor, well, you're getting the low quality cast iron. That has the more impurities. It's got more rust in it. It's got more garbage. So therefore, it took less process for that to happen. Therefore, you're paying for less manpower.
Sure.
As that increases and you're getting more and more refined, well, now more people have had to check it or people have had to look into it. Therefore, the rotor cost increases. So it's fun to get on and be like, they got me. I think you're paying for more refinement.
You pay now or you pay later, but you pay. If you are unfamiliar with bedding or the break-in process, and I'll just kind of keep it kind of light and simple, it is a process of superheating the pad rotor combination in order to allow the two mating surfaces to kind of create a consistent bedding or mating surface itself. And it is a process of making sure that you get up to speed and then applying the brakes in an aggressive fashion without triggering the ABS pulsing. Additionally, you don't ever want to hotspot the rotors, which means that as you go through this superheated process of braking, you don't then want to sit
at a red light,
or sit in a fast food, drive-through and allow the pads to sit and in a overly hot capacity sit there and cook on the rotors.
Yeah.
That creates a hot spot. So it's this delicate balancing act of superheating and mating without then sitting. Also, it's meant to be kind of aggressive or violent in its process. And so actually when I do it, I drive between neutral and a drive gear, and I'm actually not using braking. It's actually kind of similar to back in the day when we just drove with our clutch as opposed to driving with our brake. And that might be lost on a number of people anymore, but was very much a thing at one time. So kind of a pertinent point to brakes and how they work by today's
It's like
standards.
any good date. You have to take your time, got to work up to it, that kind of stuff.
Wow. Wow. Last piece of this equation, do you want to fill us in on the challenges that we're seeing with parking brake assemblies?
So I am a little...
Those are junk. That's what I have to say about it.
When we went to the little drum brake inside the rotor hat, way too long ago, we did inherently have some challenges because we now have less surface area. We grew up, well, if you're our age, you grew up expecting your e-brake to act kind of like your real brakes because they were. When you had a rear drum and you had your parking brake, you were using the same shoes, the same drum, the same hardware to, if it was your service brake or your parking brake. Turn around to now, we have a miniature drum inside of your rotor. And because of that, they never get used. They rust up. They're bonded. We don't have almost anybody uses riveted shoes anymore. The bonding will give up because rust creeps in underneath. So usually people don't even know they have e-brakes or parking brakes until they fall apart and start grinding and making noise.
Especially if you're not using them regularly.
Correct. The other thing we seem to adjustment, because we're expecting them to work at peak performance because of the size, adjustment is critical, super critical. And you have some mechanics, and I completely understand, they are so cognizant of sounds and noises, and people are super sensitive when they've just had their brakes done. They will adjust down the parking brake to get off the rotor, and then they won't adjust it back, because at that point they're doing self-preservation.
They're adjusting the pressure from the brake shoes to remove the rotor, just in case that wasn't inherently clear to anybody.
As your rotors age, they will get what we call a boot lip. They will have an edge kind of rust build up, because obviously the pads are taking some of it off. It'll migrate two directions. Well, one, you have a surface of a hat, so it can't go that way. It can go the other way, and it builds up like a crust on that edge. So then when you go to pull the rotor off, you're fighting that crust. The same thing would happen back in the day when you would use your drum brakes to full extreme, and you would have to adjust down your shoes to get the drum off. In any regard, we're seeing that more and more, and we're seeing people's e-brakes or parking brakes not adjusted correctly also. And it is, again, fiddly to do. With that also said, I think, as much as I'm not a big fan of electric stuff in brakes, when you have the parking brake as part of the caliper, you have a more efficient parking brake. So, because now you're using a larger part of the brake to work. And it's also all about leverage. So if you're a hot rod guy and you're going to swap from one system to the other, like my wife's CJ7, I put rear disc brakes on that because I was excited and I thought we should disc brake the world.
That's all we all thought we should do.
It's stick shift, and the parking brakes don't work because the foot pedal does not have enough leverage to pull on that. I dealt with that with my 36 Ford, same thing. I changed from mechanical brakes to hydraulic brakes. People remove the bell cranks and the torque multipliers in that, and then the brakes don't work. Mine does. I didn't know that when I did the CJ build.
7. Yep.
And it's not as easy to do on something vintage like that. And that is for our, TJ, CJ, YJ, XJ guys. When I did my XJ swap, same thing. Parking brake didn't hold worth a crap.
What about the auto tensioning parking brakes?
Well, and that's the last piece.
I had to bring that up because I know that doesn't always work. You still have to go in and adjust other parts of it.
And what he's speaking of is JKs would have because it's such a pain in the butt, they would, and cables stretch over time, it would have basically a big spring, almost like a clock spring. And as you used your handle, it would adjust up until it didn't. And then it feels like you're not attached to anything.
Yep.
And then we got to go in and replace your handle mechanism. I haven't seen that as much on the JLs. I'm not sure if
I don't think we're old enough to worry about it yet on the JLs.
It could be. I'm not sure if they use that technology with it or not. I'm not as familiar with it.
Yeah, we haven't seen the failures. We saw it fail in JKs early.
But the JLs, the failure is the rust in the hat. And that's
correct.
The mechanisms are seizing up in the hat.
Absolutely.
That's what we're seeing on that.
Correct. As of this moment. Now, that's not to say that, age-wise, we're 7, 8 years in. It's very well could be a whole new slew of things aging and wearing out.
And another important note, when you do have that internal parking brake, the metal of the backing plate is exceedingly important, because that is what holds your pins and that kind of stuff. When those start to rust away, nothing is holding those shoes anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to kind of land, because that was recently enough I've seen with a couple JKs and maybe a JL where there was not an appreciation for that relatively thin stamped steel piece.
Yes.
Because it's very reminiscent of the dust and debris shields of the 90s and early 2000s, which you could get away with just eliminating from the vehicle.
Yes.
And this backing plate, we cannot. And
because it holds the shoes. And what happens when the nail comes loose because it rusted through? You take out your ABS sensor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Literally will rotate through and get caught and snap the ABS sensor.
And we haven't traditionally seen good aftermarket support for those parts either, where other brands, you can literally go and buy a new 10 piece and kind of renew that, where for some reason Jeeps do better, darn it. Aftermarkets, you can't.
Yeah, it kind of reinforces the conversation that now brakes can still be a DIY friendly service, but you have to prioritize a high quality installation and follow through process. Understand that it is not the forgiving scenario that it once was. And that you do need, approved brake grease. You do need to make sure that everything is super clean and fluid in the process.
And put the never sees down and away.
Oh yeah. When I say lubricants and brake grease, stop using the never sees.
Definitely
not
don't put it on the
lubricant.
pads and rotors.
Don't put it on your pads and rotors. Don't put it on your lug nuts.
Corporal Colin in the comments said, I have an issue with my JK where my e-brake just goes up to the sky and doesn't really hold on a hill. I just adjusted the drums, but it didn't do much. How do I fix that? Like replace the whole assembly? And yes, that's what we were talking about. The whole handle assembly.
The whole handle.
When it goes for the sky, that's not the mechanism, and the handle is junk.
Right. That's not the cables necessarily. That's not the parking brake shoes themselves. That's the handle is junk itself.
Yep.
All right, folks. Well, I hope that this was some insight into the most modern application of the JT series. Again, at the end of the day, we have BRY and BR Guess, BR2 through 6. You can only get that specific 3 digit and letter acronym or indicator via your VIN. It's nowhere posted on your vehicle. Once you know where it is, I encourage you to grab a paint marker or a label maker or something, put it under your hood or on your fan shroud, or I don't know, something, so that you don't forget it and you are able to then in an educated manner walk in and say, yes, this is my brake code. With that said, you may not be able to go to every aftermarket parts store and give them your brake code. They might want to know whether you have a 330 millimeter rotor or a 24 mil thick or whatever. But in theory, the 3-letter brake code should satisfy 9 times out of 10 as far as your ability to source brakes for your vehicle. As always, if you have further questions that we can be of benefit to you, feel free to hit us up on our text-only number, 440-855-2100. Again, 855-2100, or email us at contact, CONTACT, at sfj4x4.com. Anything else for the good of the order?
Nope.
As always, if you're interested in hearing about what projects and other shenanigans we have going on in our personal lives, hang on through the outro credits. But otherwise, we have a lot of Jeeps and a very busy time of year. So Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.
So what I was foreshadowing about was just a real quick recap, if for those that don't know. We were early on in our adult lives, me and Neil, and we had both purchased houses, and we both had used junk mowers that we were just flogging within an inch of their lives after they had gotten used up and thrown away, basically. Like
Elsewhere from other...
Didn't have reverses, didn't have adjustments. Wheels were missing off of decks. It was not pretty.
First of all, wheels are always supposed to be missing off of decks. Second of all, I had to go to a Kevlar belt. This is when like the Kevlar integration was really, really exciting to the world, right? Where we started to weave Kevlar into rubber. Mm-hmm. And I had to go to a Kevlar belt because pulley alignment were so screwed up on my lawnmower that I was going through a belt about every mow and a half that I was doing. So I went to a Kevlar belt that I had to specially purchase.
Now, are you talking about the Cub or
the Cub?
Oh, okay. I'll allow that.
You were going into you were talking about the derelict state of affairs that
it was
our
bad.
mowers were.
It was super bad. So we became purveyors of box store lawnmowers. And
I actually special ordered one.
we went through and we were looking at gauges of decks, and we were talking about motor horsepowers and all that kind of stuff. And both of us wanted the biggest deck we could get under our tractors. And this is where Neil one-upped me at the moment, and he got a 54-inch deck, and I was only able to get a 48.
I had a bigger horsepower motor than
I know, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to get the biggest box store John Deere, and he got the Clembligram of Craftsman.
What?
the creme de la creme of the craftsman.
Yeah.
This is when Sears was still actually a store.
Yes, we could physically go in the store and look at it, and he special ordered it because he didn't want no junk Kohler motor.
I didn't want no junk Kohler. I was reading the internets, and I knew what was happening
You
to
needed a Briggs
Kohler
and Stratton.
overseas. Yep.
Yeah.
I had a BNS, and while they did not have a great reputation as well, because at that time they had a whole line that was being produced overseas as well,
Yeah.
the particular BNS that I special ordered onto my YT 4500 chassis
He was a little passionate.
was in fact, and it's a YT because it's a yard tractor, was in fact is supposed to help relaunch BNS, primarily because it had a pre-oiler. At the moment that somehow you turn the key, it was supposed to
Magic.
oil the engine.
Magic happened.
Yes. It was supposed to relaunch the BNS line as a reputable small engine manufacturer again.
So here we
It was a
are.
good engine, but that BNS never came back.
So here we are, and this was before our boys were born. So we had all this extra time to go and spend on lawnmowers that we, at this point don't have.
And we're not landscapers, right? We're not
No.
actually going to a commercial grade,
We were just very passionate about
very
it.
passionate
at the time.
about our box store lawnmowers.
And like always, he got his first, and then I got mine slightly
Just shortly after. Just
It's
shortly
like normal. But any which way. So here we are, 15 years
Or
in?
better, yeah.
16 years in. The Craftsman is lovingly known as Lucy.
Lucy the lawnmower.
Lucy has lost her deck.
Yeah.
Deck has exited the chat.
I put it in the scrap pile at this point. It's been repaired multiple times, and
Spindles were not good.
Let's talk about the fact that who was meticulous on the maintenance of their tractor as well.
Hold on.
I was meticulous. Lucy's a wonderful yard dog at this point.
Yes. And our boys have grown up learning how to drive on them and run them into things and everything else. And
100%.
Headlights are not quite what they used to be, and hoods are not what were.
I have an LED light bar on mine, and I run an oversized Jeep Liberty oil filter.
Yes.
I've got the rear wheel weights because obviously, that's the world I live in. Just
Surprised you haven't installed the lift kit yet.
and the other piece about my mower, while I was asked, obviously, was zero turns were just totally, they were a commercial grade thing.
Yeah.
So mine was called, I think, either a 3-degree mower or a 6-degree.
It was all about the turning
It was
radius.
all about that turn radius.
how far drifting
Which
could you do?
actually never worked because you would get the front steer
would
tires.
scrub the tires.
It would just scrub and then it would push it forward like a
Yeah.
three-wheeler.
And I remember we were
lose traction entirely.
comparing specs. His had a slightly tighter turn radius
I did.
than mine did.
I did, yes. I could whip around things in the yard.
Yeah.
My wife took that challenge entirely too literal and put stuff everywhere in the yard
Yes.
as far as planters and gardens.
Make it
and whatnot.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm over that. No,
And suddenly our giant decks were not fun anymore.
no.
So anyway, the last 2-ish years, the little deer, as mine is called, has gotten to where it doesn't want to back up. And you also went through deck belts on Lucy.
I did.
Like water. And I was all proud. I was like, yeah, I've only put one deck belt on, which is still true.
I swapped mine out so I didn't get burnt with it blowing apart.
It's always fun when that happens.
I was maintenancing mine.
Where my original belt died in a feat of glory in the middle of the field after water.
I had trauma from my Cub.
and I
didn't
just heard
want that.
bang, and that was it.
No.
So anyway, I've been ignoring the fact that it doesn't back up, and I had gotten to
Just
the
drive
point-
it forward.
I put it in the healing weeds over the winter,
The healing winds.
and this is where we're at right now. So, battery never got unhooked. Mm-hmm. I turned on the key and the hour meter came on. I was like, hey,
It's got juice.
it's got juice. I'm already batting more than I thought.
Right?
And it was like, rawr. And that was it. I was like, okay, jump pack time. So fired it up. Did I check the oil? No. Did I worry about what was under the deck? No. I did flip the hood open to jump start. And I was like, oh, those are some little walnuts or whatever, some acorns.
Some woodland creature was inhabiting
It's
it.
like, go away. So I was able to back out of the healing weeds, and I immediately just turned on the deck and started mowing because that's what you do. And
I'll have to talk about mine afterwards because I also have a deer.
so I've been mowing 2 or 3 times this season already like that. And I had forgotten that backing up was a problem until I went to back up this year, and I was like, this sucks.
Nobody's home.
Somebody's home. It's getting, as it warmed up, it was get worse. So this has been plaguing me, and I really want a zero turn like normal. Neil is ahead of me. He's gotten into the zero turn world, and my wife is not having it. She's like, they're expensive, which she's right. $5,000 for a lawnmower is ridiculous.
That's a cheap one anymore.
That's a cheap one.
Yeah.
And that, so I've just sort of like longingly look at them when we go to stores.
You walk through it,
As I
walk
look
past
through
them.
and shake my head at the price.
Like a love that you're not allowed to indulge in.
Yes.
Yes.
So I was happy to just continue caning my tractor and ignoring it. What's the oil in it? Don't know. How long has the filter been on it? Yes. That kind of stuff. And I gave up taking the deck off a couple years ago. It's just what it
You
was.
take the deck off of them?
Every year. You take it off every year. You do the oil at the end of the season, the beginning of the season.
You do oil changes on them?
I heard there's an air filter in there somewhere too.
Is it really?
So anyway,
The one time I thought I saw like grease fittings on the tractor. Those are for
figment
either.
of your imagination. So,
There's 1,000 hours on Lucy.
woo,
How many hours are on Little Deer?
260.
1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lucy's been through the ringer.
Yeah.
How has she lived 5 times the life of Little Deer? That's what I
no
want to know.
idea. But you did mow a lot.
I mow a lot. I have bigger properties, and I
Yeah.
use it at the shop.
Well, that
Yes,
you're
you
more
did.
meticulous about the length of your grass.
maybe that's true too.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway,
It's a mental. It's a therapeutic thing for me. I need people to know that.
Not for me.
so I was doing good ignoring all this until the other day. I was on my way home, and the neighbor had pushed out this Cub Cadet to the yard, to the street with a free sign on it. I was like, ooh, I like free
You
junk.
were always a sucker for Cub Cadet as well.
Well, I've been touched a couple times by Cub Cadet, but anyway,
I know, but there's
free.
a part of you that wants to like it.
free and next door. I'm here for it. I don't even have
You
to
have to
push
get the
it.
trailer out.
Right. I didn't have to push it hardly at all. It was great. I got the kids excited. One steered, the other one helped me push. And it's funny. I just started pushing, and Aiden's like, aren't we supposed to pull the thing for the hydrostat to help it? And so he did that. I was like, oh, now it pushes easier. This is great.
wow.
So anyway, we push that over, and my daughter immediately decides this is her tractor. No discussion. She is
Aiden
claimed it.
has his own toys.
He did get an old Craftsman, like a 78 or something Craftsman with a Briggs and Stratton on that one. And my wife, before this Cub showed up, she kept like, well, Aiden's got a tractor and he can mow. It's a 70s Craftsman. The deck is good, but it's not good. And it's got the one where you like fold the handle down to make the deck engage. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
I'm not prepared for using that for playing around to let him go mow a little bit. Sweet. The dedicated mowing,
I can't.
No.
That's your primary mower.
can't do it. So anyway, so we do the process. We get out a battery. We see what it's going to do. It pops up. It has 80 hours on it. I'm like, game on.
Free mower, 80 hours. Cool.
It's got a 42-inch deck. Okay, can deal with that.
It's not the size of the. It's not the size. That's how you use it.
But it has a Kohler motor, and you hit the starter and it's dunk. That's not good. So, we pull the plugs, check it over. We scope the cylinders. Everything looks brand new in the motor, and I just kind of put it off to the side because Aiden appropriately said, we're currently playing with this in Mom's parking spot, and there's a few things in my house. You don't do that. So I pushed it off to the side. She didn't even notice it for like 2 days. Then finally,
It tells you what kind of junk you have sitting around your house.
That's true.
half of it's yours. Anyway, so Sunday on Mother's
Just a back
Day,
tree line.
Yes. Yeah.
I decided I'm going to. Neil, it's partially Neil's fault because he's like, I talked to him about, I was like, the motor's locked up. He said, pull the starter before you do anything. I was
Yes.
like, I'll do that.
Yep.
Pull the starter. Nobody's home. It's still locked up, solid as a rock. I'm like, okay, I'm really curious. What is this? So me and Aim, we start pulling the motor apart. Next thing, the motor's off the tractor, split the case. Inside of the motor looks great, still won't turn. Pull the heads, valves are all there. Everything's good. I'm like, what in the world is wrong with this thing? So then we're pulling pistons and rods, and those were all good. And a bare crank in the case won't turn.
Bear crank.
Bare crank. Finally get the flywheel off. I thought they had used a Preston bearing. Mm-hmm. No. The case is the bearing.
Oh,
And the seal
gosh.
looks like it went through Chernobyl. It is bad. It is hot.
way.
So I don't know what in the world happened, but the crank and the case are one. They have decided that as a marriage, they are not getting divorced.
Shut up.
So that is where
No bearing for the
from what I can see, no bearing.
weird.
So anyway, that's where that stopped. I'm like, well, my backup plan now needs an engine. So, and Aiden's like, well, I really like the deer, the little deer.
He likes everything.
And he's grown up with the deer. And I've, ripped a lot of the things he's attached to out of his
ripped it
life.
right out of his life.
So I was like, all right, let's take 2 seconds and look at the little deer. Show it a little love, but not too much because it'll expect more.
Be feel entitled.
And I'm like, I'm going to look at the belt that drives the transaxle. And it's missing chunks.
Huge chunks.
Huge
Send me
chunks.
pictures. Huge chunks are missing from the.
And I'm like,
Oh boy.
that's going to break really soon. So I go on like, how available is this? $30 in stock. And my wife's in town. Here, honey, here's the part number. Go ahead and buy me a belt, please. And I start tearing it apart. Pull the deck off for the first time in years because I can't get to it otherwise. I was not ready for the level of involvement to change that belt. It goes through the steering system. You got to pull the motor loose, all kinds of crap. So, but I'm vested at this point. I'm changing the belt. And I'm go and fire it
I
up.
want for everybody to know at home too. He's doing this as floor work. He's out in the dirt basically.
Pretty much. So I go and do a victory lap. That's not a victory lap. It still won't back up very good. Full throttle, it's like barely crawling up. You put it down at an idle, it won't move. So a long time ago, Lucy the lawnmower had gotten the rear end service, and Neil had told me all about it. And there was a special plug, and you had to flip the rear end over, and blah blah blah. And part of me didn't want to admit that we had the same transaxle because I have a deer.
He's got deer superiority.
And my deck's still alive. Now they're all the same.
Yes, 100%.
So he had told me like you had to pull the rear end out of the tractor, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do all that work. So deer's on jack stands, rear end's out, pull it all apart, tons of magnets, nothing's too exciting. Oil, it's kind of there. But I was like, I'm going to try to save this mainly because my kid's interested and mainly because I'm broke. I can't go buy my new tractor that I want or zero turn. And I'm like, I'm not going to invest anything in this thing. Everything has to be on hand. So it's like, you should use 5W50 oil. Nope. It's getting synthetic, whatever I got, which I had 2 quarts of Schaefer's 10W40 on the shelf.
Close enough.
Good quality stuff.
So I threw that in there. Wasn't quite enough. And I was like, wait a minute, I have a 5-gallon pail somewhere. And I go and look, and it's 10W30. I was like, cool. So I pour that into a quart, top it off, and I'm hearing something. Oh, mind you, when I went to get the bucket, the little screw-on lid on the bucket
Wasn't on.
wasn't on, had been missing for a while.
Oh, God.
I chose to ignore that. As I'm pouring out in that, I hear stuff moving around in the bucket.
In the bucket.
So ignored that as well. And filled up the transmission, transaxle. You have to purge it, did all that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, now I want to get the 5-gallon bucket out of my life. So I'm going to fill back up the 2 quarts and put them on the shelf. And because we ain't wasting Schaefer's.
We're not wasting it.
There was bolts in the bottom of the bucket.
How did bolts get in the oil
They
bucket?
didn't want them to rust.
Because there wasn't any lid on it for years.
I mean,
You ordered this bucket for me before I was full-time.
oh, God.
And it's been living without a lid.
Good quality oil.
right.
So the saga continues. I have to put the rear end back in the little deer, see if it still works or not.
Well, real fast, since we went way over time, Jogga Jeeper said the best place for deer is in the woods. I got to say, I don't believe in that because my deer's 6 or 7 years old at this point. It lives outside full time through all seasons. I don't disconnect the battery. I have, in the entire ownership of it, I have changed the blades once.
Me too.
And that was only because Neil yelled at us last year or 2 years ago. I don't even remember now. And I changed an ignition switch because it melted down on me. Other than that, there has been zero maintenance on this tractor. Zero.
Healing weeds, I'm telling you.
I literally went out this year to start it, and I'm like, it's going to be the year. And it fired right up. I'm like, all right, we're good to go.
Start mowing.
And I mow everything. Dog toys, rocks, tree roots. I don't care. You hear the loud noises as I'm hitting. I'm like, I don't know what I hit, but I'm going to keep moving. I'm getting the yard
Hey, if
mowed.
the branches are under a certain size, they aren't a branch anymore.
Exactly.
Quick.
Exactly.
Greg had a whole conversation with me last week about how I need to relocate the pedal of my zero turn so that we can lift it more efficiently
Yes.
as he maneuvers around obstacles in the yard. And I just thought, yes, Greg, you're right. We should do that. However, I just mow right over it.
I pivot on the deck all the time. Just go up, get the round corner. All right, now I'm in a good spot.
You were
now.
talking about not knowing what's under the deck. I don't know that. I think I've cleaned the deck one time in my entire ownership.
I sent him a picture of mine.
I know I'm probably hurting him.
Oh, God. All right, folks, this has been too much. Unless there's anything else for the good of the order.
Yeah.
It was Mother's Day, and so if you've forgotten, do something now.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Celebrate somebody who's been motherly in your life in some capacity or just some other special individual. I don't care. You know what? It's 2026. You have all the reasons to just celebrate something. We need some little
Some win.
some win in the process. We got a lot of Jeeps to get to. Until next time, Jeep on.
Jeep on.